So introduction. So this would be like how did the Battle of the Nile take place? After General Napoleon Bonaparte's victory over the Austrians in Italy, he decided to go to Egypt. His fleet docked at Alexandria Harbor, where Rear Admiral Horatio Nelson cut off and prepared to engage the French fleet. At the time, most of the French sailors were ashore getting supplies, but the French admiral decided that his position in the harbor was strong enough to hold the line with only his cannon. The reason that he stopped this was because there were lots of shoals and rocks in the harbor. So he thought that the English ships would probably hit the rock and flounder. Nelson, however, didn't think this, so he kept prepared for battle. As it was an early evening, Nelson ordered that his ship use illuminated white ensigns to see which were friends or enemies. His plan was to split the French forces in half like the Battle of Patient Winter. He did not consider so much the shoals of the bay. He would engage an enemy's vanguard and then strike at the center. Then he would destroy the enemy fleet and capture the flagship L'Orient. So here's a picture of the English ships approaching the French line of combat. We don't get to see the illuminated white ensigns because it's still light, but we'll see them in a further picture. British attack. The British ship Goliath saw a slight flaw in the French defensive line, and Nelson, hearing the news, ordered an attack to use the potential of the mistake near 4 p.m. Goliath attacked the French ship Guerrière, while the French frigate Serrier made a serious mistake. You see, at the time, frigates were not supposed to attack ships of the line and let them do their thing, and in return, the bigger ships of the line would not devastate the frigate. But Serrier's captain decided to land a few shots on HMS Arion. The captain of the HMS Arion waited for his ship to come to point blank range and destroy the Serrier in one massive blast. So the ship of the line were considered, if you have 60 cannons, you would be considered a ship of the line. Anything less than 60 cannons to 30 cannons were frigates. Anything less were sloops, brigs of war, and cutters. So over here, this is a picture of the battle. This is a battle. This is a picture from the battle. This is a picture from the Battle of Trafalgar. But this is a picture from the Battle of Trafalgar, but it shows that the Wilson Tower over here is completely destroyed, just like Serrier would have been. French reaction. At this time, the British were already smashing the French vanguard composing of the French ship Guerrier, Conquérant, Spartiate, Accueillant, and the Peuple Souverain. Were busy unsuccessfully sending off the British ship. Goliath, Audacious, Orient, the French flagship in there, meanwhile, had successfully beaten the HMS Bellerophon, but had taken damage. Back in the front, Accueillant and Spartiate were getting inventive, and both shot a broadside at the HMS Vanguard, the British flagship. Rear Admiral Nelson himself was injured, but despite all the suggestions to stay below and rest, he raced up on deck anyway to observe. The French admiral, which at this point was basically cut in half by a cannonball, remained on deck to not grab medical attention. So this picture on the bottom here is Admiral François Paul-Drey, the French admiral who got cut in half by a cannonball. L'Orient's explosion. As more of the ships captured the French vanguard, more ships started engaging the 120-gun Orient. The ship was being cut to pieces, but not long after it was observed that the lower decks were fire. The lower decks were filled with gunpowder, so you might understand why this is a pretty big problem for the L'Orient's crew. Take advantage of it, the HMS decided to focus its fire on the area of the blaze. This ensured that the Orient crew could not put out the fire. The tactics proved more successful than anticipated, and soon the fire was back in hot. Realizing what was going to happen, the HMS Alexander, Swifter, and Arian started edging away as right after the French flagship, a 120 gunner, then exploded. No one had ever seen such a large ship explode. Of course, but if you would imagine, they were quite smaller and it was in day, not night. But seeing 120 ship gunner led to shock. Imagine if you would see like the entire sailing ship city exploding in the middle of the night. As this had never happened to happen, the two fleets went south. Four ships had exploded before, but first there were a lot smaller in the day. But seeing an explosion as big as this one at night, it was obvious as a big spectacle. There was silence for about 10 minutes. Then the French ship Franklin started firing on HMS Swifter. The battle started again and rapidly firing began again. But by midnight, the battle was practically done, with only the tunnel still offering resistance. At the rear guard of the formation, led by Admiral Pierre Villeneuve, I basically just sat and watched like it was a cartoon of Tom and Jerry. Some fighting continued in the morning as Villeneuve managed to drag out some of the surviving French ships into the Mediterranean. Although the French fleet had been reduced from 13 ships of the line, 4 frigates and 2 ships of the line and 2 frigates, with 2 vessels destroyed and 9 captured by the British. So the picture on the lower right is Admiral Pierre de Villeneuve. Aftermath. There was an odd sort of aftermath to the battle. Nelson's dispatches talking about the success who were placed under the 50-gun Leander, lost a fight with one of the 2 surviving French ships of the line on the way home. So it took a little while of the news to get home. Of all the French ships, the French ship Tonon demanded special referencing as it put off a fight against the British crew, even nailed flags to indicate surrender. So this is a picture of the Tonon's nailed masts fighting. I think that's the HMS Leander. Gifts and presents for Nelson. First, he created a barrel, but then why not a arrow like Jarvis at Cape St. Vincent? The reason is because technically Nelson wasn't commanding a fleet, but a detachment, like a squadron. Second, he was most ridiculously, he received a coffin made by Captain Hallowell of the HMS Swifter, made from the mainmast from L'Orient, saying, "Sir, I've taken the liberty of presenting you a coffin from the mainmast from L'Orient, that when you have finished your glorious career on this world, you may be buried in one of your trophies. But that period might be far distant as the earnest wish of your sincere friend D. Hallowell." Imagine getting a coffin for a trophy from one of your captains after a battle. That was pretty funny. So over here is the picture of the mast that was taken aboard the Swifter to make the coffin for Nelson. Legacy. The Battle of the Nile remains one of the Royal Navy's most famous victories. It immediately trapped Napoleon and the troops in Egypt, and only by luck did he escape to defeat the Austrians in Austerlitz and the Prussians at Jena. He could have prevented Napoleon's victory over the Russians at Eylau and Friedland, and he would have never been coronated. The Battle of the Nile made many good opportunities to finish their course upstart for good, if not for the capture of HMS Leander. I'll share the presentation after in Google Classroom. The link is for the Battle of Jena and Austerlitz and other things concerning Napoleon's campaign throughout Europe. And credit. I would like to thank many websites which I used to research this presentation: Wikipedia and YouTube. The end.
That was absolutely excellent. Bravo, Zulu. That was very good job, Coxswain. Well done. That was really, really good. I'm very, very impressed. We couldn't have said it better ourselves, I'll tell you that much. Well done. Great knowledge on the Battle of
Good
the
job.
Nile and on Nelson and his enemies. Love the story about the coffin being made of the mast of the ship. That was fabulous, fantastic. Well done, well done.
Yes, correct.